video I shall be talking about SQL verification tips. Before I proceed, let me tell you that these are very simple, basic, yet very powerful tips in terms of value. I'm pretty much sure it will be useful to many folks. Let me set up the context first. Target audience for this video will be the new SQL developers writing PLSQL scripts or SQL scripts, which will be deployed on multiple environments like development, SIT, UAT, productions. These are the basic environment chains, like whenever you talk about any software as a whole. In that, you might have like so many SQLs which will vary based upon your environments. Like the oral syntax structure will remain same, whereas the data will be different. Like when you deploy in development, it might have some development data, especially when it is some sort of metadata or some sort of property data, which you can also call as a static data basically. Or it will be different in SIT, it will be different in UAT, it will be different in production. In that case, it becomes very crucial that when you deploy it, you basically verify the data that has actually got into that environment is really the right one. And if you do this verification manually, it becomes over the period of time very tedious, because as a release time comes near, the number of script goes bigger and bigger and bigger, and it becomes very difficult that you actually go and do a manual verification of each and every script in that environment. I'm pretty much sure that many experienced developers also do not care about writing verification scripts and leave these verification as manual step, which is pretty obvious. If there is a manual or human error, it may cause a big problem, especially when this is about production environment. So these scripts that I'm talking about, as in the verification script, we will be talking about more like how we can write these scripts, or basically what change I do to find out my target data in the database. This, like, we can write some select statements which can actually identify our changes from the database, like when we add a new table, when we add a new PLSQL block, or when we modify something into an existing block, or we just add one column only in any table or view. So how do I find using SQL scripts those things? And this quick tip is basically about that. As a technology wise, probably they may not be really very flashy or jazzy, but the impact, I'm sure, will be really good. I mean, the learning wise, it will be really good to use. So you can take this example here, like you have SQL 1, SQL 2, likewise SQL n. The step will be basically execute first SQL, then execute the verification script, which basically will be giving you a Boolean result based upon the expected records. When we go to the actual PLSQL developer, we'll understand what kind of records or how the count is relevant here. You can also write a PLSQL block which basically throws an exception if the count doesn't match. If you really want to, if you have any interactive deployment tool which can basically catch these errors and just abort your deployment. And then once all these scripts are deployed, basically you gonna collect all the verification scripts, and then which primarily has failed, and then you can take the necessary corrective actions to correct those issues. Let's understand this using some examples. I will be using SQL developer. This is the window, and let's see a couple of SQL files which are like an example for a deployment script. This very first one, which is like update employees.sql, is a SQL script which updates employee table with an employee ID as 100 with a salary of 50,000. This is the second one, which creates a new procedure, proc1. So currently this procedure is not there in the database. So if I refresh this, you can see just there is a proc2 and there is no proc1. So this is an example of a new procedure, whereas the procedure 2 is an example of a modification. So the original procedure that I have is like this. It has text like this is a proc2, that's it. And this new procedure which will be deployed, I will be appending an additional text here called latest version that you can see on the screen. And this is my main deployment script. So how I have set here is like I have created a folder deploy under which I have kept all these 3 SQL files, and this is going to be my deployment script which I'll be kind of running to get my scripts deployed onto any environment. Now let's see the example verification script that I will be writing for such SQL. So the very first one, the employees, right? I need to check on the employee table with a unique combination as a filter, which will definitely get the exact number of records that I'm trying to change or modify. So in this case, employee has employee ID as a unique number, so I'm using that to find out my record. And then additionally I'm adding a salary filter clause which is going to be 50,000. So if you see it carefully, currently my employee is having some salary which is not equal to 50,000. So when I will be running this script, it will be failing. So in this case, it's basically a script which is based on count star, so definitely you're gonna get a result. But if the filter clause doesn't match, you will be getting a 0 record here. So when I run it, if I get a 0 record, I have used a decode statement which will basically result to a failed output in this result column, and if it is updated properly, then it will result a pass. So just let me run this. So you can say it says failed. So you can see I have added a SQLite here with the name of the file that is basically belonging to this script. Update employees, verify salary update of 50,000 to employee table for ID 100, and then result is failed at this point of time. Similarly, the second one that we have is going to verify the procedure 1 is deployed or not. So because remember I talked like it's a new procedure, so just an entry in the user object table with the status as valid, because it's a PLSQL block, it could be invalid as well. This should be sufficient for me to identify. So at this point of time, there is no procedure 1 that is deployed, so this query will be giving me again a failed result. So I have mentioned the file name for this, which is basically this procedure and this file name, and this is what is here, and the message says like verify procedure proc1 creation, and the result is right now failed. And the last one, where I am going to basically verify the modification of proc2. So I have used a table called user source. It is a table given by Oracle which contains the source code of all procedures and triggers that we have deployed into the database, and the text column is the one which basically contains the content of it. Anyways, like later part of this video, I'll be discussing about the various tables that we can utilize or extend to find our modifications or verify our modifications. In this case, I have used this. So if this particular procedure is not deployed, it will give me a failed result here. Remember, I also spoke about a PLSQL block example. So suppose your deployment tool is interactive enough which can basically respond upon an Oracle exception. So such things also we can write such things. The query remains same. I have taken example of the first query, which is basically update employees 1. In this case, what I have did, like I have defined a count variable here, and I have also defined a user defined exception with an email like PLSQL verification exception. And the count you can select using the same clause into p count, and you say that if it is equal to 0, which means like you have not received any records, you can raise this exception. And if it is not, then you can simply successfully print update employee salary this, and table of this is successful. And if it is failed, like you can catch this exception, and you can basically raise application error with some number which you can maintain somewhere, like you can define one number for each file, or you can give some logical number here, and a message saying that this is failed. So if I run this at this point of time, I will be getting a exception which you can find out here. So you can see here, Aura 20,001 update this salary update is failed, right? So now how it will look like and how it gonna basically solve my purpose. So in this case, what I'm going to do to start with, I'm going to comment this first line. So what it will do, basically it's not going to run my employee one, but it's going to run rest of two. So I am going to now execute this file. So here it is, you can see it says proc1 compile, proc2 compile, and the verification script I'm going to run as scripts. So you can see what happens. It says the first one failed, the second one passed, the third one passed, and the last one has given me a sort of exception that we have already seen earlier. Let me show you that. Here it is.